guys. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Voice Gathering Live podcast show. It is your host, Diamond. We are in the building on today to have a very interesting conversation. Before we jump into this conversation, remember, if you are not a subscriber to the channel, please do me a favor. Click the subscribe button. Make sure you click the notification bell. That way you are informed every time this show is going live or we have posted some form of content to the show platform. I want to thank each and every one of you who have been a subscriber to the channel, who come back on a frequent basis, check out the content, post your comment, agreeing or disagreeing or making suggestions, and always giving us a shared thumbs up. If you didn't like it, a shared thumbs down with your comment about what you did not like about the show, as well as click the share button right next to the thumbs down button so that you can share it to your platforms, streaming platforms, wherever you're sharing at, so that we can get more people joining us in a great conversation. As you can see, I wanted to have a conversation. I can tell you right now that this is not going to be a one-time show. This is a heavy hitter show. Today's show is a very heavy hitter show. It's so heavy that I contemplated on, is this something I truly want to talk about? Because some people cannot have a conversation openly without getting their feelings hurt. They are, sorry guys, they are bothered by a heavy conversation when it comes about Christ, God, and all people who are atheists, Hinduism, whatever you believe in. This is a heavy hitter show. So I want to say shout out to my girl Latifah. Hello, cuz. Nice to see you in the chat. I know iRob is out there. Hello. And everyone else who's coming to the show. Let's get real. I have to tell you, I too struggle with this conversation, being hurt by the church. Many of you can take that literally and say, okay, yes, the church is the most judgmental place you would ever want to visit. And I don't want to get really biblical, especially in this show today. I just want to open up a platform where we can talk honestly about what it feels like or experiencing people being hurt by the church. And what are some of the battles people go through each and every day when they're trying to get saved, get closer to their higher God, but yet the people in the church are the very people hurting them, right? I don't know if you've ever personally experienced going to some place and being in an environment that people unlike you or like you are there, and some people who think they are better because they got the message sooner, or better because their position is different from your position, are now in a position, quote, of saying you are either welcome here or not welcome here. I just wonder, for a lot of you who are going to watch this show, what was your experience like when you went to some form of fellowship, the church, the masjid, wherever you went, and you felt like you weren't wanted there? You felt like you didn't deserve to be there. You felt like an outcast there. My understanding, what people tell me, what I've come to kind of experience, what I'm being taught, that the church is where people go who are sick, right? So for an example, when you are sick, you go to a hospital so that you can have healing. You go to a hospital so that you can be cured or whatever it is that you're battling. So in the same context, the church, the physical building, right, is nothing different than a hospital. It's where sick people go to be healed. Now, if you are questioning how does a church heal the sick, then that's for a later show. But it really, today's show again, is to get people talking about what their experience has been when it came to going to a physical church and those people in that church creating a feeling of not being wanted. How did you deal with that? How were you able to overcome where you know there's healing at? You've been taught that if you go there, you can be healed in whatever way you're looking to be healed. How are you dealing, or how have you managed individuals in that same place, making you feel, creating you a feeling in you that says you're not wanted here? Now, I also know that there are people within churches will say, well, never we're saying that a person's not welcome here. And I actually say, well, maybe you are saying it, but not verbally, at least directly to the person's face. Because if a person comes into the church, let's say a young woman comes into the church and she's coming with 4 children, and she is not dressed to the standard of what the church is expecting, but she shows up, and you find people within the church gossiping and whispering and talking, and you got to be careful who you talk to, because you never know who knows who, right? And you are setting the tone in the church for this new person, this soul looking to be healed with 4 children, a feeling of you're not supposed to be coming here looking like that. How do you expect the person coming to a place of healing to be healed if you're creating a space for that person not to be accepted there? Creating a feeling of, I shouldn't go back there. I honestly think, it's so hard for me to not put my own thoughts into this conversation, because I want to hear from you guys. But, you can post your comment and actually put your comment in the comment section about what you're thinking. But it's going to be hard for me not to actually share with you what my thoughts are, right? I too have been hurt by the church. I don't know too many people who have not been hurt by the church, because if you ever went to a church, and I want to get back to the woman with the 4 children, but if you ever been to a church and you saw eyes staring at you, it got back to you that someone said something about your attire, or you came there with 4 children and where's the husband, those kind of things. That does create a feeling of, wait a minute, I'm coming to a place where people don't even know me, are judging me. Even if you know me, that doesn't give you the right to judge, but that's for a later conversation. People that don't know me are judging me. And I'm coming in here for deliverance, for healing, for a connection to, matter of fact, let me take healing. Let me take deliverance off the table, just to be closer to my higher God. And I'm coming in here off the street. And when I say off the street, I don't mean literally off the street, but I mean off the street, meaning the outside world, into this place supposed to be of healing. And I'm in this space, yet all eyes are on me. People are kind of whispering. I heard a little comment in the corner. My children don't look clean, or my clothes don't look acceptable, like the women on the front row, the deaconess, and all the people in the pulpit. And how do you expect me to feel comfortable enough to want to come back? Is this not why we have more people out of the church than we have in the church? Here's another question for you. Is it that the church is the main reason why there are more people not walking closer to God than we expect? Is it that because of teaching of the book, the Bible, or whatever it is that you subscribe to, is it that your understanding of the teaching says that you're supposed to be judging the people that's coming into the church? And if it creates a feeling within that person that they're not supposed to be here anyway? I'm really, really curious about what people really think. I have truly, truly, truly seen people come into a church And all of a sudden, the church seems to be growing in numbers. And it's not about the numbers, but it's about the soul, the inner person, that core person coming to the church, and some point down the line, they never come back. Now, yes, it could be part of that person became uncomfortable and they struggled, and therefore they didn't want to be in that space anymore. And it could be that the people in the church created a feeling within that space that says you're not wanted here. Now, yeah, they're going to say, we never said they're not wanted here, but action speaks louder than words. So if you're avoiding sitting next to, you're cutting your eye in a certain way and looking in a judgmental way. If you are whispering with other people and then it gets back to the person, you have spoken louder than you were expecting to speak, that the person is just not welcome here. I see a comment. Okay, Latifah, what you got here? I remember being raised Muslim and remember going to a church with my friend who family had money, and I was like 12 years old, and I didn't like the way some of the adults and kids looked at me like trash. I felt like I also put in my mind that they were better than me. Not surprising, and especially Latifah's coming from the Islamic faith and talking and going to a church that the doctrine and the practice are, for some people can see similar. Some people can see as similar, and some see very different. Latifah is saying exactly why I wanted to talk about this show. I'm telling you, my mind is racing. People who are I'm sorry. Hold on, guys. Now people want to know. People who are looking to have this connection with God, their God, a God that they heard of. And again, the building, the hospital, the church, where we are supposed to be creating an open door that says, come one all into this space where there's healing. And again, I'm not going to talk about deliverance, but really it's it's healing and deliverance. And yet people don't come back because of that space you created. I just wonder how we can, as a people, get closer to God if we can't get closer to the church. Now, I said I didn't want to get very churchy or biblical in this conversation on this show, but I did want to talk about that when we understand that the physical body is actually the temple, the church, and the soul, that being within you dwells within the church, then I think people start resorting to, well, I'm just not going to go to church, the physical church, because I am going to just go ahead and stay with watching church on TV and looking in my Bible and reading scriptures, looking in my Quran and reading yada, yada, yada. Okay. But if you study the scriptures, the word, we are to go to the hospital. It's, again, I want to use the analogy of a hospital. So we could do all the kind of analyzing of our sickness on the outside of the physical hospital, but yet have the wrong diagnosis, right? We are treating one thing and it's totally not that thing, right? So when we are talking about, oh, I got a headache, but you could be suffering like seizures and don't even know it. Or you haven't had a seizure, but you're about to have a seizure. So you need to go to a physical hospital, right? So that you can get the right proper diagnosis, the right proper treatment, so you can get the right proper healing. Well, this is the same thing when we're talking about the physical church. If people who are sick spiritually, lost spiritually, feel unwanted, can't get to the church because the people within the church are creating a feeling of unwanted, judgmental, how were they to get healing? Oftentimes people become hurt by the church. It's the church. It's the physical people in that building, that dwelling, that create a feeling of unwantedness. And it goes back to my question. Is this the real reason why we have more people outside the church than we do in the church? See, getting closer to your higher God is a personal thing. But if you can't learn the fundamentals, the basics of how to get closer, how to pray, how to worship, how to devote time, how to fast, how to do all these different things, because you can't get into the physical building because of people creating a feeling of unwantedness, how are you to get your healing? Hello, Miss Cross. Nice to see you here. You need church because it puts with you like-minded people. It builds you. Yes, I would agree. Yes, it goes back to what I was saying about going to a physical hospital. I definitely believe you need a church so that you can get the healing that you need. However, if the church or churches you are visiting create a judgmental attitude about you coming into the church, how are you to get that healing? Yes, it's personal. Yes, it is a personal thing that you must find and build. But there's some people who truly, like Latifah said, she has never, she was born into the Islamic faith and did her practice as a young girl that way, from dressing and worshiping. And she went to a church. And in that church, she felt it. You can feel it. You can feel it. I will not mention, and I guess it's, I'm questioning, should I mention my church? It's not about me putting my church on Front Street. Because I'm telling you, I believe it's in all churches. But, be transparent on my show, right? So I will be transparent. I am a member of a church, and I have been in this church, and I love a lot of people at this church. There are some really good people in this church. It really is. And there are some people I look at with a side eye and say, I see what you're doing. I hear the whispers in the air. I see it. And that's how I've always been. I've been the type of person that wherever I go, from the church to the club, which I've not been to a club in a very long time, and I just stand back and I like to just analyze the room and the space. And I like to see who's flocking with who's jiving with who, if I can hear what is it that they're talking about, because it tells me, is this where I want to be? Is this the type of people in this space? And do I want to be connected to that space? And in my church, which is a very small church, which I love a small church. I love to be able to reach out to my pastor, and I have a very good pastor. I have to say, if he was not a good pastor, I would not be there, because I'm there to be taught by the shepherd of that place. But I have seen some other sheep or wolves in sheep clothing that I'm like, you are pretending to speak godly, but you are a wolf in sheep clothing. And I honestly believe that all of us at some point, especially when we're getting into our walk, that we've all been some kind of wolf in a sheep clothing. Because again, I'm not going to go too deep on the biblical thing, but if you're saying one thing and doing another, we all have been guilty of that. That topic for a later show. This is about being hurt by people in the church. Strictly hurt by the people in the church. And that's why you must find a church home, and a home that you can grow with. Very important. It's very, very, very important that you find, and yes, Jasmine, you're absolutely right. Finding a church home where you can grow is so important to your growth. Don't get me wrong. In the church is where you get your corrections. Yes, You get your corrections, but you should not be getting hurt by the church. There's a difference in being corrected about a behavior, an attitude, or something like that in love. But if you're being supposedly correcting someone's behavior because it does not line with what you believe the word says, but how you deliver that message, you are hurting than you are connecting. You're hurting than you are bringing into the church. So when a person doesn't come back, it's easy for the people who are doing the hurt and say, see, they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They just wasn't ready for the church. They aren't delivered. They're not ready to be delivered. They're not there. Wow. Shame on you. It was because of you and your decision making and your words and your actions caused that person to walk right out the very doors they were walking through to get the healing that they were looking for. There's a lot of people coming to churches and don't even know what they're looking for, but they know that what they're experiencing on the outside of the church is not what they want anymore. Therefore, they hear that there's a place of healing. So let me go there. Let me go and get healing for me. Excuse me. So those individuals go right up in there and darn, they hurt. They hurt. Another thing I don't like is that when you can't talk to your pastor. I was brought up in the church very young, and the pastor was always accessible to the sheep. You could reach out to the pastor and you can talk to him or her and say, this is where I'm at, pastor, and this is what I need, and I need you to help me. Now listen, there were pastors when I was young. If you watch the Aretha Franklin, I want to call it docuseries, C.L. Franklin, honey, I remember hearing about pastors like that when I was a kid. I hate to say it, but he was a wolf in sheep clothing. But we all are at times. Because when we stray away from God's word, then we end up and then we're trying to have a testimony, or we are confessing. I think at times we are kind of, it's not perfect. And I know some people will watch this show and say, I'm not a wolf in sheep clothing. But if you ever told a lie and then you were trying to correct someone else's lie, big bad wolf. We all are. The closer walk to your higher power is a daily thing. It's a daily shedding of the old skin. That's what it is. However, understand that if you can't get into the physical building to anchor yourself in the word, where people are supposed to be like-minded people, saving souls and helping people get to their closer God, then it becomes even more challenging. You have enough challenges on the outside of the church to have to go into the church and be challenged that way. If the challenge is going to come, I believe for me, I welcome the challenge of the correction of my spirit, but not the challenge of the people of the church. Not the people who, it says where one or two are gathered, he is in the midst also. So if you are in the midst of judging people coming into the church for their deliverance, for their healing, for their breakthrough, I'm frustrated and I'm baffled by that. Transparency. When I was brought up in the church, it was old school church, okay? Trust me, old school church. Women wore stockings and slips, and, you wasn't wearing form-fitting clothing and, so forth and so on. And I mean, I think there's a lot of things that when I think about what I was brought up in the church to what I see now, I look at them like, wow, things are so different now. It's so different. But isn't it first come as you are? Just as you are. Because once you come as you are, God will do the correcting once you get there. He'll do the correcting. We're trusting and hoping that he will put people in our space, in our lives, as Jasmine said, about getting around like-minded people, where you can start getting the nurture, the love, and the support to guide you in that space. And some people will accept it and some people won't. But however, nevertheless, we have to be accountable about what we are doing and how we are doing it, that's causing people to lose their soul to the world and not getting deliverance from the world. We don't sleep in churches. We don't sleep there. Figure of speech. We just don't sleep there. We go there, we get our dosage, we get our medicine, and then we go and we leave that physical structure to go back into the world and have to now start taking and ingesting more and more of the medicine that we got. When I tell you that, one thing for sure is that if you get around like-minded people who are searching as well, they may not even be where they want to be, but they're still searching and striving. And they're not going to judge you, but pray with you or worship with you and pray for you. Even if you don't show up at the church and they go to the church, if those same individuals are going to the church and actually praying for you, calling your name. And I know this sounds very churchy, but for you to understand where I'm going about being hurt by the church, we also must we can't just look at one side of this conversation and say, well, yeah, the church is always hurting people and therefore I never want to go back to church. No. We want to talk about being hurt by the church, but we also need to talk about how we're going into the church and what it is that we're expecting from the church. Because if you're going into the church and you're being hurt by the church, then what was your expectation going into the church? What was your initial expectation of going into a physical church? What were you going there for? Until we can actually realize, well, I was going to the church for this. Then you can then understand, well, wait, was I hurt by the church? Was this a correction out of love? How did they deliver the message? Was I more sensitive about how they were giving it to me? There's a number of things that we are going to be questioned about. But if we don't, first and foremost, question ourselves, what am I going to a physical church for? If we don't ask that question first, when we get into the church and don't know what we're here for, then we have no real idea what we're going to be expecting. Sidebar. Nobody looks to go to a church to be hurt. No one. No one ever is ever going to tell me, no one ever goes to a church that I'm going to go to the church to be hurt by the church. No, they're actually going to the church to be loved by the church, supported by the church, make like-minded friends with people of the church. They're going to the church for more connection, not separation. You don't have to go to a physical church to be separated. You can just stay in the world. The world is a very judgmental place. I pose this question: how can we get people to not be so judgmental in the church? What do you guys think? Please post your comments. When you see this show, I'm asking you to post your comments on what do you think we could do to create a space where we're not judging people, but helping people get healed. And sincerely mean it. I happened to come upon this video, and it was on YouTube just before the show, because I was looking for content. I wanted to show a couple of videos here on the show about people talking about how they were hurt. And I still may, when I do an edit to this show here, put it in the description of this show today on a couple of videos. You have to get permission from other video individuals to use their content. But I really wanted to show there's tons of people who are talking about how they were actually hurt by the church. And for that reason, they don't go to the church to be healed. They are going to watch their church on television so that they can actually get the word into them, and then they go to their source of support, be it the Bible, the Quran, or whatever it is that they're looking into, and then they're trying to apply that word to what they're hearing on the TV. So they just don't go. And I would tell you that my understanding, what I have been taught, is that we need to be able to go to a physical building, a physical church, a physical hospital where we can get the healing we're looking for. It's just not enough to get it via someone broadcasting the scripture or the doctrine on TV. That's just not enough. We actually have to go to a physical building. We have to be connected to other life supports. And believe it or not, people in the church are life support, or they will take your life. Being hurt by the church. They plug into you a source of strength. They break the word down for you, especially when they are learning it and they're feeding on it, meaning studying it, where they can now share it with you and break that with you. That's why it's so important to get linked to a church where you can be you in the church. I didn't want to go too deep, and I'm not, because we got a few more minutes on this show. But let's talk about a couple of people who've been shunned from churches. Women and men who have had multiple relationships with multiple people, have created multiple children, and now walk with shame of living an adulterated life. Living an adulterate life. Homosexuality. People who either feel they were born a certain way, changed their love interest from one person to the same sex person, and now they still believe in God, and they still never stop doubting God, but they have been dealing with this thing here. Someone who has created murder and have taken a life, and now they want to come into the church and be plugged into, connected to a source so that they can grow. These very people don't feel accepted in the church. They feel ostracized by the church. But from the beginning of time, before Adam and Eve, there has always been sin in the world. Always. Always. The 12 disciples were sinners. There's always been sin in the land. But there's this feeling, even stronger now, that, and I'm saying now because I'm living in this world now. There's this overwhelming feeling of you are going to hell. You will die. You will never be reborn again because you have not turned away from the very thing that brought you into the church. I also welcome someone who is of the cloth, of the faith, to come onto this show and have an open conversation with me and the people who are going to be watching this show, to talk about what it is that they actually are, to understand what it is that they have been speaking. I truly, truly welcome that, because, I am a person, like many people in here, who are looking to be closer to our higher God. I don't care if I got 3 kids or 4 kids by 4 fathers. What does it have to do with my soul? What about all the people who love same-sex people? All those people going to hell, honestly? And it isn't the people in the church business to judge. There's a difference about correction people and judging. And people in churches, not everybody, Not everybody. But there are people in churches believe that it's their job to judge you and not help you. Okay, what we got here? Looking at the comments for those who wonder what you're looking at. I'm looking at comments here. Some are doing worse than judging. They're bashing and being rude and taking nasty. Absolutely, Latifa. Absolutely. It definitely can be brutal in the church. Child, who wants to fight 6 days a week? And on the 7th day or whatever day you're going to church, you are being judged just as if you were when you were at work, in your home. You're being torn down. I don't know. Let's see here. Unfortunately, flesh, Jasmine. Let's see what Jasmine said. They wanted me to approve it, so I'm going to approve it. Unfortunately, fleshly, Jasmine would be sitting in the church with. You can say that again. You can say that again. It's tough. It is absolutely tough. And I am honestly concerned for my soul and everybody else's soul, people's souls in the comments, people who are looking to be closer to God. Because that's who I believe in. I believe that there is God. So you believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to judge that. I'm not. I'm here to tell you that my soul desires, thirsts to be closer to God. I do. I truly, truly do. For the atheists out there who don't believe in God and don't believe that there's anything other than this here, that is yours to believe. I'm not here to judge that. I do welcome an opportunity on this platform, again, to have people of the different faith to be able to come and have an open conversation about your God, my God, and what we need to do to get closer to him, to walk, not to be concerned about being hurt by the physical people in the church, because they are judging us based on what they think they know, what they do know. Let's say they do know. Let's say you shared it with them. Now they think that that's the key for them to just judge you. How are you saying that you're praying for the person but judging them in the same breath? How are you doing that? Are you not accountable for the soul that will be lost because you are now judging the very soul that's seeking to be closer to God? Are you not accountable for that? And people do take scriptures. And when I tell you people take scriptures, let me put myself in the same, when I say people, we take scriptures and break that down in a way that we understand it to be. It may not be necessarily what God says it is to be. It's unfair. It's unjust. It's cruel. I think that's why we got more people out of the church than we do have in the church. I was going to be saving my comments for the last minute, but I think you can picture where I'm going, that I think it's just totally unfair. And I think that until we get to a space where we can start really accepting the sinners in the world into the church so that they can get the medicine that they need so that they can be healed and delivered. And if they don't be delivered from the thing that you think they need to be delivered for, that we will continue to pray for them, embrace them, lay hands on them, those of us who believe in our high God, so that they can have salvation later. I think that's just what we need to know how to do. Because if we don't, the church will continue to hurt souls. People are going to continue to leave the church instead of coming to the church. People are running away from the church, not because they are being corrected, maybe some, not being corrected, their spirit is being corrected. Because if we truly want healing and deliverance, if we truly want to be saved and walk closer, then I must say, then we have to get ready to be uncomfortable so that we can get the healing we're looking for. I have to do the same thing, the same exact thing. But there's a way of doing it. You ever heard of doctors who have bad bedside manner. He come to your bed and says, you dying. You just dying. Ain't no saving you. You're dying. You're just going to die. You don't eat right. You're fat. You need to lose weight. You're just dying. They're no different than the people in the church who come up in there and listen, you're going to hell because you wearing this tight dress and you got 4-5 baby daddies and you curse like a sailor. You smoke cigarettes. You're in a same sex relationship and we say that love is love, but your love is not love. It's very hurtful. It's hurtful. It's tough to hear. It's tough to really believe that, wow, I went to that church. I'm using me as an example, not really talking about me in this context. I went to that church and I went to that church and I went to that church and I went over to that church and I left that religion and went over to that religion and I left that religion to think about maybe considering this religion, because in all these spaces, I didn't feel welcome. I didn't feel accepted. I didn't feel I could be me so I can get the healing I need to be. My mind is racing. Sorry, guys. So I can get the healing I need so that I can get the deliverance I desire. That's just rough. Rough. It's absolutely rough. And then those people who go into the church and now they so holier than thou, they get a little piece of church and now they have been biblical scholars for like hundreds of years. Be careful, people. Just be careful. What is this? Right, Jazz, just because I sure would hit them over the head with my good old bingo bag, I'm judging them. Okay. Yes, Latifa, it is extremely hard to walk in faith with people who done vile things. Imagine sitting in church with Zimmerman. It's hard. Absolutely. But I think with the comment that Jasmine just made, I honestly think if you're sitting in the church for the right reason, it would not be hard to sit there with Zimmerman. DC, the guy who took George Floyd's life, it would not be. Because a compassionate person walking in God's spirit, not earthly spirit, when the flesh starts to rise up, they will be praying for that to go down. So I honestly think that it would not be that difficult for someone who are truly anchored in God to sit in the same place where those people are sitting at. Because Zimmerman would be no different than people said that they're sitting next to a homosexual in the church, a thief in the church, a person who's lusting, all of those things. Sin is sin. It's sin. Zimmerman was a sinner. DC a sinner. You and I sinners. We're all sinners. Every time you go into the church, you're still a sinner. If someone tell me that they 100% been delivered, honey, and they have not sinned, listen. If you stray away from anything of the teaching of Scripture, then you're a sinner. And we all stray. Every last one of us. We all stray. Is it not confess our sins to one another? I believe that to understand that to be that we confess ye one to another, so that you're no better than I am or no worse than I am. And therefore, my struggles I'm going to pray about. And your struggles we're going to pray about. And we're just going to pray until we are delivered from the thing that separates us from our blessings, from God. The church needs to figure out quickly, because they say that we're in the last days, quickly figure out how to bring souls into the church and stop hurting them and start praying for them real. I don't want to get scripture. I don't want to get biblical, but he said God was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he was praying for the very people that were prosecuting him. That agape love. I think another thing, we also need to learn how to forgive ourselves before we walk into a place looking for someone to forgive us. Until we learn how to forgive ourselves and walk through the doors, we're going to struggle with those who are hurting us. We're going to struggle with that. Not that we should not feel it and then pray about it, but we're going to struggle with that because every time we think about going to a physical building, a church for deliverance and healing, we're going to be saying, oh, you know what? Listen, I'm not going there because these people are just vile and vicious. They hurt one another. They do more damage than they do good. So I'm not interested. I don't know. I hope that this conversation will spark a deeper conversation with other people who are going to watch this show. Please post your comments because I'm very interested in what you think about said topic, being hurt by the church. And if you overcome being hurt by the church, what is it that you did? What steps did you take? How did you manage getting past being hurt by the church and still stay with the church to the point that you got what it was you were looking for from the church? I welcome you to put that in the comments. I welcome ministers, anyone walking in God's faith to come on this show and create a tone of conversation where people, including myself, can engage in, where we can have a conversation about being hurt by the church and how to overcome that. I honestly think that there's a way to have a healthy conversation and not fight about what it is that I'm talking about. I'm also thinking, can we open up the conversation without you beating someone over the head with scripture? Because if a person doesn't understand scripture, how can they feed on it if they don't understand it? There's a way to easily guide into the conversation that would open up an opportunity to bring in the scripture, the medication for healing. We don't have to beat each other up over this. Well, listen, this is what it says. Okay, you're telling me what it says. But we need to kind of be able to learn how to communicate in a more way that's easy for the person to process, easy for the person to digest. You can't just come up in there saying, God said this and you're going to hell. What? Are you kidding me? Are you seriously going to sit here and now remind me that I'm already struggling with not losing my soul to damnation? I'm going straight to, that's how you want to open up the conversation? No, people, no. Learn how to communicate to people, with people, so that that person receiving the information can process it. Now, there's some people who just don't want to hear it, child. As soon as you bring it to them, they already, well, no, that's not what it is. And but why this, why that? You can't have an answer if you're not willing to hear the answer. I guess that's why we need to be forgiven, because you're right. All the commit sin, but some are disgusting when most of them are humans. Absolutely, Latifa. Absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree. We have to learn how to communicate. It's about first and foremost, have a desire to have a connection with a higher power. For me, that's God. Secondly, learn how to forgive yourself. And some people would see it reversed. They think that the first thing to do is forgive yourself. And I wouldn't say that you can put that one to be number one either. I believe you absolutely can put that to be your first one. Learn how to forgive yourself. Also, have a hunger, a desire to have a connection with your higher power. Those are the first two things. I'm not even going to go any more on any other steps. Those are the first two steps I think that we need to learn how to. Before I can go into a space where other people are who are judgmental, full of hate, wolves in sheep clothing, judging me and trying to figure out, well, how to put me down so that they can feel great, feel like they're closer to God. I need to learn how to first forgive myself. And simultaneously have a hunger and a thirst to be closer to my higher God. Because I understand that if I forgive myself, if I have a connection to my higher God, He then will put people in the space where I can be fed in a way that I can hear them. But if I can't forgive myself and I can't be in that space, then the walk is going to be that much difficult for me to get closer to Him. All right. Great show. Big up to my girl Latifah, because that woman works like nobody's business and oftentimes is not able to come on the show, but she's here tonight and I just want to thank her so much for being here. Thank you, Latifah, for joining the conversation and being transparent and sharing your feedback about being someone born under the Islamic faith, and then just your experience of going and visiting a church and feeling not welcome and not wanted. A big up to Jasmine for coming in and sharing some words. Appreciate it very much. Guys, listen, this show is, I know that there's been times that we talked about trending topics, and we will, because they're going to be relevant to me creating a conversation with you. But I want to always create this platform here about having a conversation that oftentimes people don't want to have, don't know how to have, or just raw in your face. And the only way that this show is going to be successful is if you guys are showing up, showing out in the comments, clicking the like or dislike button. Doesn't mean you dislike me. It just means you dislike the topic or the show. Okay, come back and let's try it again. And sharing that share button, clicking that share button, and not ashamed to share this show. That's how we grow. Get people, tell your friends, subscribe to the channel. And if we don't get any more people to subscribe to the channel, those who show up are the ones who are meant to be here. So for that, I say thank you. I want to read to you two things. One, I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. Again, I did then what I knew how to do. But now that I know better, I do better. And for sure, surround yourself with people like you. Can be boring. Absolutely boring. But if you surround yourself around people who are curious about you, it could be a very more interesting conversation. Thank you so much to my people. I can't wait to see you guys on the next show. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up here. You know, the funny thing is, I always like to bring my things in. So let me just do that really quick now. Okay, listen. Make sure you're giving us a thumbs up here. The conversation was so good. I just kind of verbally remind you guys, but give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Again, if you didn't dig us on this conversation here. Also, do not forget that we are on these platforms. These platforms right here. They are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. The same name, Voices Gathering Live Podcast Show. In our conversation here, we always create a space for question and answer. And that's what you guys do. I ask it, you ask it, we try to get an answer for you here on the show. And for always remember that this show is always going to have what? Real talk. We're going to be creating real talk. Always having real talk with you guys. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I can't wait to see you guys next time. Also, don't forget, make sure that you follow the show. Follow the show. Follow the show, my people. That is how you're going to get what I'm giving. All right. Thanks, guys. I can't wait to see you next week. Same time, same diamond channel. Bye-bye. Bye.